Greetings, programs. This is Wretch, and welcome back to Vampire the Masquerade Parliament of Knives. And in the last chapter, guys, we witnessed a confrontation between two powerful Tremere blood magicians in our own home, no less. But we decided to pick a side with the current Tremere primogen, and we'll see how that, unfolds as we continue on. We also got staked, and our sire put us under interrogation, and it looked like we were in a bad shape, but it seems that an attack on Corliss by our Banu Hakim friend that we met earlier has kind of thrown a wrench into a lot of machinations that are going on here, and we were actually freed. Now, Jeffrey Dean, the author, has been commenting in the YouTube comments. I definitely recommend checking those out. But apparently, that could go so many different ways. Depending on relationships and if you had wronged your sister. And there's just so many threads and different pathways that the story could go. And I love that. I absolutely love that. But now we're moving on to chapter 10, Ascension. And it looks like Corliss is actually going to be going for the title of Prince of Ottawa. So we need to see what's going to happen there. The hotel Corliss has chosen for her council meeting is a modern one. Lacking the elegant grace of older, more grandiose accommodations, the lobby is comparatively cold and angular. Polished stone floors paving the way between check-in desks rising like symmetrical black marble slabs topped by perfectly aligned HD monitors and watched over by impeccably manicured attendants. The lighting is stark, almost blinding when coming in from the clouded night sky. A modern venue for the changing of the guard, indicative of not only transition, but a return to simplicity, a reformation of a more orderly, Spartan Camarilla. There's little doubt that Corliss chose this venue as a symbol, representing her vision for the Ivory Tower. And we get to say our opinion of it. The window dressing means little to me. What occurs tonight will happen regardless of the setting, which is true.
Yeah, I'm not sure how I feel about it, Lucas says. There was a charm to the old Elysium, This place almost feels like we've landed on an alien planet.
You watch as two of Key's officers haul a long coffin-like metal box into the service elevator by the far wall.
It feels strange that Corliss just had that lying around, you say, as she always kept coffin-sized boxes ready to stuff with the bodies of would-be assassins.
Lucas shrugs.
Well, I guess if I was as high a priority a target as she is, I'd want a way of transporting a body if I had to. And she's paying these people enough money to look the other way that even if we were carrying Kashif's body upstairs in the open, they wouldn't say a word. Still, though, we have to observe the Masquerade at all times, especially now.
She shakes her head.
I still think we should have dealt with him right then and there. Carrying a trained Banu Hakim assassin around is like a risk, stake or no stake. Well, I can't see any way he'd be able to get out. Even elders can't break free from a stake in the heart. Why would Kashif fare any better? Well, maybe he can escape, but I still don't like it, Lucas says. I was trained in risk management when Corliss sent me to oversee her businesses, and this would never fly in the corporate world. Do they transfer many paralyzed assassin bodies in the corporate world? You ask, arching an eyebrow. Shut up, Lucas says with a short laugh. So it's not a perfect comparison. I just want this to go smoothly is all.
Two neatly dressed security guards greet you with a nod as they watch you approach a gleaming elevator. Something about them makes you feel distinctly uncomfortable, but can't put a finger on exactly what that is. They must be new. You've never seen them before. When the door finally closes, you're able to relax a little. Oh, these may be Second Inquisition, like masquerading as guards.
You're sure Key has security under control? You ask. I thought we'd be joining him and something feels a bit off about these new guards.
Lucas shrugs.
Well, he told me that everything checks out.
She holds up an old cell phone.
But he said he'd text me if he needed us to go somewhere specific, so stick with me, okay?
Hey, Messy. You stare into your reflection in the perfectly polished metal. It's been weeks since you've really given much thought to your physical appearance, considering everything that's happened lately. Kindred stop aging at the moment of their deaths, and their physical features are almost impossible to alter for more than an evening, so there's really very little you can do about it regardless. Not to mention the fact that Silas is a Nosferatu. You can only vaguely remember what you looked like in your youth. You've been middle-aged for so long now that you half expect to see a gaunt old man staring back at you. Instead, you haven't aged a day. But it will all catch up to you if you're not careful.
They just built this hotel recently, didn't they?
You ask. Luca nods.
Well, a lot of it was at Corliss's direction. She hired a few of the engineers, but made sure it wasn't traceable to her. She doesn't own it directly. I think she gave that privilege to some hedge fund manager she keeps hidden way back in the States.
The elevator chimes and the doors open to the sounds of dozens of voices raised in animated conversation. There's so much raw power packed into such a small space that the air practically crackles with possibility. The council chamber's muted lighting bathes the room and its occupants in a warm off-white fog as the crowd bristles with anticipation. They gather in small knots of 3s and 4s, weaving rumor and insinuation twisted into the webs of boastful storytelling. Many of these kindred haven't seen each other in years, and in the age of the Second Inquisition, such a gathering is rare indeed, and such rarities are not to be squandered. Corliss didn't want to hold anything back, you think. If there had been any doubt that she planned to proclaim her right to ascendancy this evening, it vanished the moment you saw the blood bouquets. Clusters of mesmerized mortals had been arranged at regular intervals throughout the room, suspended from the ceiling and tied together with black velvet rope in groups of 3. Glistening taps sprout from their arteries, providing access to slow drips of blood from the carotid in the neck down to the femoral artery on the thighs. Beneath each dangling cluster stands a wooden table studded with crystal shot glasses for sampling small quantities of the vintage at hand, all minimizing the risk of death by exsanguination. Each mortal has been clothed in lavish finery, the blood taps protruding through carefully designed holes sewn in the cloth specially for the event. Clothing provides hints as to their particular backgrounds and auras for those kindred of more refined appetites. You've never seen anything so extravagant in your unlife, and you doubt you ever will again. This is such a terrible waste. It's far too much, and I have no doubt the Primogen will see it for what it is, a thinly veiled attempt to impress and curry favor. You've become jaded during your long decades as a kindred, and tonight is a perfect example of how you arrived at that state of mind. The question, of course, is whether or not the Primogen will see through such blatant pandering, and if they do, will they care? General Kenobi! Hey, Nova.
Come on, Lucas says. I think we made it in time. Corliss isn't speaking yet.
On the other end of the room, a small stage rises about a foot off the floor, dominated by a podium carved from a rich, dark wood. Corliss's old family crest hangs from the front, emblazoned in gold thread on cloth. You've served under that banner for years, but you never expected to see it representing the Prince of Ottawa. You barely had the time to settle before a set of double doors on the opposite side of the stage jerks open as 2 of Corliss's ghouls carry a limp body up onto the platform. It's hard to see in the dim light, but once they start tying his arms to a metal cross, his head lolls to the side, and you recognize Kashif.
She's keeping him front and center, Luca grumbles. It's a bit theatrical for her.
What is this about? A woman yells from the crowd. You think you recognize her as a former Ottawa resident who long since moved south to the United States. A Ventru if you don't miss your guess. Jessica something? Can't remember her last name. Is this a celebration or an execution? She asks. And why not both? A man's voice answers her. When he pokes his head out from the crowd, you recognize him as the visiting La Sombra dignitary, Rabbi Michaelis Basaras. All historic events are punctuated with the letting of blood. Kindred and kind alike know this to be true. I would be careful what I say if I were you, Jessica retorts. Like it or not, you represent the future of the La Sombra clan here, Michaelis. She sniffs disdainfully. Don't screw it up this close to the finish line. Where is Corliss? A familiar voice echoes from beyond the doors as the ghouls who brought Kashif into the room return the way they came. The destruction of a traitor who would have assassinated me on the eve of my ascension is quite proper, Corliss says as she steps out. I am strong enough to withstand traitors, plots, and invaders from outside the domain, and that is why I will be Arendel's successor. Further back into the crowd, Ophelia slams down a crystal shot glass hard enough to make a crack in her hand. And what of the anarchs? She asks. You're not even strong-willed enough to push them out of the city. Corliss smiles and adopts a patronizing tone as she takes her place behind the podium. The anarchs are being dealt with at this very moment, my dear, she says, and I do apologize if the appearance of your lover on stage like this has upset you. The insinuation isn't subtle. Corliss intends to paint Ophelia with the same brush as the would-be assassin. She seems genuinely taken aback when Ophelia responds by laughing. On the contrary, Ophelia says, I actually appreciate you doing the honors, even if it leaves me with a lingering dissatisfaction. Kashif was defecting to the anarchs right under your nose. Your administration has been so abysmal that a deal Arendelle spent years putting together with the Banu Hakim fell apart in a matter of weeks. Kashif warned you about the Tremir's treachery long before you ordered the blood hunt. There's no forgiveness for betraying the Ivory Tower, but your feckless leadership led directly to his decision. She points to you. Silas witnessed this in person. Tell the council the truth. Tell them that your sire was warned of the warlock's aggression and did nothing. You hadn't expected a moment to speak, but now that the opportunity presents itself, how can you play this so it best affects your position? Siding with Ophelia will surely enrage Corliss, but she's telling the truth, and if you can persuade the council that Corliss is a liar, you might be able to use it to your advantage. Luca certainly won't approve, though. Oh man, I don't know which way we need to take this, guys. So we could go ahead and tell the truth, and we're in the middle of like all of the kindred power in Ottawa. Ooh. We know Corliss. You know what? Corliss had a state. You know what? We're going to go ahead and do that. Ophelia is right. Kashif came to Corliss's office a week before the blood hunt was called, warning us that he was being threatened and attacked by rogue Tremere. Corliss ignored the problem and did nothing. Corliss rolls her eyes as she takes the podium. It might be wise, she says, for you to not side yourself directly with the condemned during a moment you know is important to all of us. Mind your words well, child. You scan the crowd, trying to gauge their reaction to your comments. Ophelia is obviously pleased that you backed up her statement, but it'll take more to win over the others, especially the visiting dignitaries who seem more interested in the refreshments than they are in you. You spoke of the anarchs, Corliss says to Ophelia, that I lack the will to defeat them.
I think it's time to show you how very wrong that sentiment is.
Whispers run through the assembled vampires as they speculate. Will Robert Ward be brought out on stage? Has he already been destroyed? If so, what proof will she have of the deed? Say what you will about Corliss, she knows how to keep a crowd engaged right from the start.
Alicia,
Corliss calls into the crowd.
Are the live feeds ready?
Of course, Eden, darling. Alicia Gray sweeps out into the center of the room. Her flowing red gown stands in stark contrast to the others' more dour ensembles, which is no doubt her intention. A diva always needs to stand out from the crowd. She's looking positively radiant for someone whose final death had been widely speculated after the Elysium bombing. She points a thin remote control in the stage's direction and presses a button with a theatrical flourish. Moments later, the wall behind you is lit up with the glaring light of several flat-screen monitors. You crane your neck and watch as Ward and his allies climb up a set of stairs along with a handful of mortal mercenaries.
They believe they're closing in on our position as I speak,
Corliss says.
Ward, Sevink, and their associates intend to destroy every last one of us tonight.
And you're just gonna let them run amok?
Picard growls.
What kind of stupid game are you playing at, Eden? This display isn't winning you any favors.
Even Key tenses up as he watches the monitors intently from his place at the side of the platform. The anarchs on the live feed reach the top landing in the stairwell and speak among themselves. There's no sound on the video, so you have no way of knowing what they're saying. But it's not hard to guess that they're planning to strike the top floor of the hotel. Corliss has stepped to the side and is now close enough to you that you could speak to her without the remainder of the crowd overhearing. There's no way to know exactly how much time you have left.
How did you prepare something like this? You've barely had the time to react to events after the fact lately. This required perfect planning.
And you don't think me capable of perfect planning?
Corliss rolls her eyes.
Then it's a well-reasoned point. I may have had assistance from the Archon, but the results are mine to use as I please. This is my coup de grace. If Ward is lucky, he'll never know what hit him. Now watch.
She gestures up at the screen where Ward seems to be yelling at Sevik, his Banu Hakim counterpart. She's holding something in her hand. You squint to get a better look. The feed is in HD, but there's really only so much that surveillance tech can do. Back on the feed, Sevik kicks down the door and you turn in your seat, half expecting to see her burst through into the council room. Nothing. She continues through a hallway, followed by several men dressed all in black carrying gasoline cans. Wait just a moment, Key says. That's a different... The monitors flash a brilliant white, and you're just able to catch a glimpse of Ward, backlit against the camera as his flesh is incinerated, innards tearing outward before they're consumed in the flickering white-hot fire of the explosion. Less than a second later, the feed goes dead. You were so entranced by what you were witnessing that you hadn't noticed the slight rumbling beneath your feet, like a minor earthquake or bombs exploding from a distance away. Surely not in this same building. Corliss raises her arms in a preening display of showmanship.
My friends and colleagues, you've just witnessed the end of our anarch problem in real time.
A scattering of clapping fills the room, but not everyone is convinced. Picard is having none of it.
You'd have us believe those cheap special effects? What actual proof do you have?
Give us a sample from 20 seconds ago, Alicia.
Corliss prompts. Alicia fiddles with the remote for a few seconds while the crowd waits with increasing impatience. Finally, the monitors behind you split into at least a dozen feeds from cameras placed at varying points throughout the stairwell, following the anarchs as they progress, eventually resulting in the same fiery end.
I have it from over 24 angles,
Corliss says. It is irrefutable. She steps back behind the podium and laces her fingers together while staring out over the assembled kindred.
Now, let us speak of the traitors.
She eyes Kashif.
Banu Hakim stands accused of a failed assassination, and the penalty for such an act is final death.
This is it. There's little doubt as to Corliss's intentions. As a new prince, she'll sweep her house clean of anyone perceived as working with the recently destroyed anarchs. A door opens along the side of the stage, and one of Key's ghouls steps in quietly, trying not to disturb the proceedings. He leans in to whisper something in the sheriff's ear, and the longer he talks, the grimmer Key's face becomes. Corliss is seething with irritation when Key waves her over to speak with him in private. From your vantage point, you're just barely able to overhear their conversation. They saw a young man matching the anarch, Hauberk's description, skulking around in the lobby. By the time they reached the location, he was gone. They're searching for him now.
The anarchs were destroyed, Key, Corliss hisses. Need I remind you?
She looks out over the crowd, but it seems that Alicia has managed to distract them with a rousing speech about what the future holds for Ottawa's Camarilla elite. Did we actually see the feral on the feed? He asks. I saw Ward, Sevik, and their mortals, but Robert's protege wasn't in the stairwell. We have to assume that he survived and came looking for us. And there's one other concern.
Yes,
Corliss says. She's balled up her fist with fury.
Out with it.
The mercenaries you hired for the event. They're green. My people have expressed concerns about their suitability. How well were they vetted?
Vivian recommended them, Corliss says. As odd as she's been acting since Arendel's disappearance is as much in her interest as it is ours to hire proper security.
She pauses to think and shoots a glance in Vivian Mare's direction.
Have your men keep an eye on them, just in case.
Consider it done.
Keep on top of it, Corliss says. I have other things to attend to, and I'll leave this in your capable hands.
He calls the ghoul back to give him instructions before stepping onto the main floor and making a beeline for Alicia. What could he be after now? Masquerade's surveillance systems were the ones used for the display. Maybe he has a follow-up? Corliss returns to the podium, composing herself quickly. The dim lighting throughout the council chamber flickers for a moment, briefly casting the entire room in shadows. Before the proceedings are able to resume, they flicker a second, and then a third time. By now, Corliss's guests are growing restless.
I thought this hotel was the best in its class,
Picard asks, voice raised just high enough to carry throughout the room.
And now we're dealing with power outages?
Out of the corner of your eye, you see a flurry of movement from the security team before they exit the room in a hurry. Curious. You wonder what's going on that's got them so riled up. You haven't heard any gunshots, and if there was any credible bomb threat, you're sure they would be evacuating everyone immediately. So whatever's happening must not be too serious. Corliss dismisses Picard's jibe with a wave of her hand.
The hotel can't be held responsible for issues with the city's power grid. I'll speak with my insiders at the hydro station tomorrow evening if it'll ease your mind. Sheriff Key,
Corliss calls. Key dutifully steps forward. His face is troubled. He knows what's about to be asked of him. It's strange, you don't remember him being nearly this reluctant to carry out executions under the direction of Prince Arundel. Corliss reaches for something beneath a podium and produces a falchion blade housed in a beautifully ornate sheath. He hands it to the troubled sheriff as she leads him toward Kashif. The vizier has been strapped to a chair, unable to move or provide testimony as defense due to a stake through his heart. You can see in his eyes that he knows what's about to happen.
Ottawa's Camarilla offered the Banu Hakim succor under the edicts of Prince Arundel,
Corliss says. We graciously opened our domain to refugees fleeing the schism in their notorious clan of Assamites. He punctuates the slur with a disdainful snarl. Our generosity was repaid by betrayal. Kashif Salik's cowardly assassination attempt on your seneschal was witnessed by both my child and my assistant. The penalty for this treason is final death. She steps aside. Sheriff, commence your duties.
I'm not going to speak out in agreement. I say nothing. Kashif's poor decisions landed him here, and I have no sympathy for him. Despite circumstances that have led to your own flirtations with treachery, you know that Kashif must be held responsible for his actions. You have little doubt that if you had attempted to assassinate Corliss in her own office, that you would meet the same fate, and deservedly so. In this particular circumstance, justice is being done, and you have no interest in stopping the proceedings. He frees the sword from its sheath, and with a bold flourish, its keen edge managing to reflect the room's dim light with a gleaming ferocity. Rumors spun in quiet corners over the years suggest that the executioner's blade thirst for the souls of the undead. As a mortal, you may have scoffed at the idea, but decades into your existence as an ageless monster, you're beginning to wonder if all the whispers are true. The sheriff and the blade are well acquainted, and you've witnessed several executions carried out by the deadly pair under Prince Arundel's watchful eye. No mercy for traitors and weaklings. It's been the kindred way for centuries. The sword slices downward without preamble, severing Kashif's neck with unnerving ease. The vizier never twitches, never calls out. He doesn't have an opportunity to voice his defense before his head tumbles from his shoulders and rolls along the stage, coming to rest at Corliss's feet like a grim trophy. He stares up at her, watching with crystalline eyes until the head and body begin to decay, the onset of supernaturally deferred age claiming his earthly form. The stake falls free, and within seconds all that's left is a mummified corpse. The lights dim. Flicker, flicker, flicker. The entire room goes dark. Shouts of confusion and anger arise from the council and their guests as lights come back up and a group of mortals dressed all in black storm through the doors. Shots are fired, drawing your attention as a fashionable Ventru in a black suit is mowed down by automatic weapon fire. Where's the sheriff? Somehow during the stampede for the exit, you lost track of Key. There's no time to search for him, no time to figure out what happened. You swing back in the other direction, stepping backward as you try to absorb everything that's happening. Luca has already rushed the intruders, and she's wrestling with one of them for their rifle. Bestial instincts kicks in as the strobes of irregular gunfire wreak havoc on your senses. You have no idea what's happening, but you do know one thing is certain. You can't just stand here waiting for it to be destroyed. You have to move. Show stats. 45. Definitely have to use obfuscate. What brought us to the dance. I step back behind one of the dangling blood bouquets to break line of sight and then fade into the shadows. Once they can't see me, I'll approach a cluster of gunmen from behind and take them out before they know what hit them. Whoop. You step away from the action, taking cover behind one of the blood bouquets at the edges of the room and slipping into the shadows, disappearing from view of both kindred and kine alike. You approach warily, skirting around the skirmishes until you have a clear shot to a small cluster of relatively unengaged gunmen firing into the crowd. Once you're behind them, you grab one of them from behind, wrapping an arm around his neck and wrenching with a sharp snap before he even knew you were there. The body hits the ground, but unfortunately you became visible the moment you killed the first of them. You slam into the closest gunman, ignoring his feeble attempts to rebuff your advance as you slam your fist into his gut. You feel something wrench and snap free as his broken body takes flight, launching backward until it smashes against the wall with a crack of splintered bone. Searing hot pain slams into your chest as another mortal opens fire on you. Snarling with anger, you lurch forward and grab the rifle from his hands, twisting its metal frame between your palms as you slam your shoulder into his gut like a battering ram. He flies backward, staggering and trying to keep his balance, but ultimately failing. Your momentum carries you into two more of the men, knocking their shots off balance as they fall back, dazed. Not wanting to give them an opportunity to recover, you rush them down, keeping on the pressure even as you see Luca closing in from the other side. Blood splatters as your fists tear through the first man's chest and twists, dragging internal organs back with it as your knuckles snap the second man's neck like dry kindling. Luca gives you a nod of approval.
"Don't hold back," she says. "We have no idea who these men are yet, but there's a lot more of them than there are of us. The hallway is jammed with them."
You're about to wade back into the thick of it at her side when the ground rumbles beneath you.
"What was that?"
you exclaim as you focus to keep your footing. Without warning, the entire floor gives way, sending you into a free fall, tumbling down into the darkness below. You groan. You're flat on your back, being crushed by a large piece of concrete. You shove it off your chest, probing at your crushed ribs as they slowly mend. You'll be feeling that for a while.
"What the hell happened?"
Luca asks with a grumble as she pulls herself up to her feet. She offers you a hand, and soon you've joined her. The air is filled with dust and debris, but there's still enough light to make out your surroundings, filtering down from a small hole peeking out onto the floor above what the council chamber used to be. A rough mound of broken timber and cracked concrete blocks have left you in a relatively enclosed space, and the only other party crasher who seems to have joined you is a black-clad gunman who broke his neck during the fall.
"I guess we won't be getting any answers from him,"
you mutter with irritation.
"There's a door over there to the hallway."
As you walk over to the door, you hear fighting resuming on the other side of the rubble. It seems that the majority of the council chamber's occupants ended up over there.
"I don't get it," Lucas says. "There's no sign of fire, but I do smell char. Some kind of controlled demolitions?" "If it was a controlled demo, then they did a damn professional job of it. Dropping the whole room at once would have taken planning and expertise." "That's what I was thinking too," Lucas says. "There's no way this was done by someone without specialized knowledge of construction and demolition. Like Ward. Didn't he own a construction company at one point?"
You nod slowly.
"I don't know if that was a cover or if it was real. Either way, do you really think he's still... Impossible to know for sure, but this could have been set up beforehand,"
Lucas says as she opens the only door not covered by 10 tons of rubble. Behind you, the man you assume to be dead barks out a sharp cough and his body shudders.
"Still alive,"
Lucas says.
"How hungry are you feeling?"
Ooh. Oh, I should feed soon. Well? I'm a bit famished. I descend upon the poor man like a blood-starved beast, drinking from him until he's completely dry. Boop. You don't even wait for Luca to finish her thought before you descend on the man, fangs bared. He screams feebly and tries to struggle, but his pathetic attempts at self-defense only serve to increase your bloodlust as you tear at his throat, sucking and slurping as you quench your hunger and snuff out his life. When you're finished, you notice Luca watching you carefully.
"I wasn't expecting that from you," she says. "You doing okay?"
You nod and wipe the blood from your lips.
"Better than okay. I feel amazing."
You can feel the beast stirring somewhere in the back of your mind, slightly more powerful than it was before.
"Let's move on,"
She said to hold nothing back. I'm just following orders. You pass through the door behind her into the hallway beyond. To your right, the passage heading toward the stairwell that would take you back toward the lobby is blackened, scorched by flame. The metal push-barred door at its end looks like it's been fused to the frame. To your left, the hall is partway collapsed, but there's just enough room for you to pass through. The muted sound of gunfire and battle screams filter through the wood, concrete, and metal, rattling around the enclosed space. Through a few small holes, you're able to see frantic movement and the licking of orange fire, but little else. Left with nowhere else to turn, you press yourself up against the wall and fall into a crouch, pushing past the debris as you make your way through the narrow tunnel in the collapsed hallway, Luca following directly behind you. Seconds pass by like minutes, as the claustrophobia-inducing walls seem to push in on you. And you can't help but think about how even the smallest shift in the rubble's position could instantly crush you into a fine red smear.
This is interminable, Luca grunts. There has to be an end to... Wait.
She points at a small window in the rubble framed by two pieces of broken timber. It takes some doing to wiggle yourselves over to it, but when you do, you're greeted with an unexpected sight.
Corliss,
Luca whispers.
Oh no.
You shake your head in wonder. Corliss is locked in hand-to-hand combat with an incredibly furious Vivian mare. How? Why? You think, your brain racing to make sense of what you see in front of you. We're surrounded by mortals trying to destroy us. Why would Vivian be attacking Corliss in the middle of it?
You didn't even notice the threat,
Vivian rages, her mouth twisting in a sneer of disdain as she nimbly dodges a palm strike that might have sent her flying. All this time, you've been so busy focusing on taking power while this cancer grew beneath the surface.
What is she talking about? Luca whispers. This attack was being planned the whole time and Vivian knew about it?
Corliss attempts to disengage, but Vivian steps back into melee range and throws a flurry of punches.
So you sent them after me, Corliss grunts. You sent them after the consul.
I didn't send them after anyone, Vivian says. I merely stepped aside. She lunges unexpectedly, taking Corliss by surprise and sending her careening into the wall almost directly in front of you. As she's recovering to return the favor, she spots you through the hole in the wall in her peripheral vision.
Silas?
Corliss gasps with a shock.
I thought you were... Never mind.
She wraps her hand around one of the heavy wooden beams blocking your path and tears it free, groaning from the strain as she whips it around to slam Vivian in the gut, sending her reeling. You emerge from the cramped passage, straightening up by Corliss's side. Corliss gestures to Luca and waves her forward toward a group of mortal gunmen heading in your direction.
Cut them off, my dear, she says. I can't have them interrupting my engagement with Miss Mare.
Luca nods and bounds off to do Corliss's bidding without a second thought.
I could use your help, Silas. I'm reaching my limits here,
Corliss says in a rare moment of candor as Vivian grunts and pushes the huge piece of timber off of her.
Half the council fled when they could. Some were destroyed and the others are fighting in the adjoining rooms. Help me destroy Vivian and you'll earn a position at my side for the rest of your unlife. No more games. No more secrets.
There isn't much time for you to decide what to do. Corliss feels desperate. Ooh. Ha. I make my stand alongside Corliss. If Vivian truly allowed these vampire hunters to attack the council, then should punishment is final death. I side with Vivian. Corliss has shown her weakness and she doesn't deserve to be prince. Now may be my only chance to take her out of power. I reluctantly decide to back Corliss against Vivian. I can't stand either of them, but there's nowhere to run, so I have to pick a side. I'm thinking probably the third one. I mean, if it's true that Vivian basically sent these vampire hunters... You think... Oh, Messy, you think we should side with Vivian? I know there's a lot to keep up with. Yeah, I think 3 is what we need to do here. I reluctantly decide to back Corliss against Vivian. I can't stand either of them, but there's nowhere to run and I have to pick a side. We are completely satiated. Holy crap. I didn't think that was supposed to happen. Nuke from orbit, the 4th option. I like that. Okay, Adeline, Kashif is dead. Yeah, Vivian's at 29%. That's not going to be good at any point in time. You know what? I reluctantly decide to back Corliss. Talk about a raw deal. You have little interest in supporting either of these would-be despots, but when it comes down to it, you inevitably have to choose the one who will cause the least damage, and that's Corliss.
You have any weapons?
You ask Corliss. She pulls a pistol from her belt and hands it to you. Surprising. She's extending quite a bit of trust to you, although that could be explained by her imminent annihilation.
Putting faith in your child now after all of your betrayals?
Vivian asks as she stalks the two of you.
It's far too late to pretend you care about anything more than your petty ambitions.
Corliss shifts her balance to her back foot, preparing to weather the charge.
Whatever you're going to do, do it now.
She grunts through gritted teeth. Woo! Okay, what's our stats again? I don't think we have enough strength to go against a elder. So, we've got obfuscate. We can allow Vivian to focus on Corliss and fade back and go for the... and go back into it. Attacking her from behind like rogue style. We can use potence and fight her head on. We also have this. It doesn't necessarily... We can also fake an attack against Corliss to fool Vivian into thinking. Do we have those stats? Charisma, manipulation, wits. Ooh. What do you guys think? What's the best way to go about this? What's the battle plan? I'm debating either 2 or 5. I'm not gonna do the face-to-face, because that ain't gonna work. But the obfuscate or the fake attack. Messi says 5. Anyone else have a view on that? I mean, this could go very well or very bad. It really just depends. I don't know if I have the stats for it, though. Manipulation of 46. 2. I'm gonna go with this. I'm gonna go with my stats right now. This may not be the best thing. You know, Corliss may die. Good news is, well, actually, there's no bad news either, because if Corliss dies and Vivian dies, I think we're pretty much okay. Twisty says 2. All right. Welcome, Twisty. Let's go. Poof! You hold back for a moment as Corliss steps forward, ready to meet Vivian's charge. She seems confident that between the two of you, you can repel anything that's thrown at her. But the next time she looks over her shoulder to figure out where you've gone, you've vanished from sight.
Oh, looks like your child has abandoned you.
Vivian crows. Even he can see the truth. You've never deserved to be seneschal, much less Prince of Ottawa. You circle around the two of them, zeroing in on an angle that Vivian can't possibly expect you to attack from, before lunging out and channeling all your strength into a surprise attack, becoming visible again the moment you make contact. Your fist crashes into Vivian's face, and it feels like you're punching a brick wall. Your knuckles crack, and you feel the bones in your fingers start to splinter, but you're not the only one feeling the pain. Vivian stumbles back from the power of your attack, and Corliss darts in from the rear, a long stiletto knife gleaming in her hand as she slashes methodically, raking at muscle and tendon to slow down Vivian's movement. The effects don't last for long. Mending can be done in mere seconds, but it gives you enough time to land a few more blows before she fully recovers. Something heavy drops to the floor as your last hit sends Vivian sideways into a quick slash from Corliss' stiletto. Her belt has been cut in two, sending a large gun skittering across the floor. Corliss' eyes flash with recognition, and she dips down to snatch it, rolling to the side just in time to avoid a wild haymaker punch that could have smashed her ribs to dust. A part of you is surprised to see how viciously Vivian fights. She always struck you as more of a bureaucrat than a fighter, but then again, an Elder Ventrue can have more tricks up her sleeve than subtle manipulation.
Keep her occupied, Corliss shouts. Whatever it takes, keep her still.
She raises the gun and tries to draw a bead on her fast-moving opponent. Is she serious? You think. That's easier said than done. Grip Vivian tightly, duck low, and bring my leg around in for a quick Okay. The roof above us is unstable. If I can figure out just the right place to hit it with a chunk of concrete. Stats! I think ducking low and bringing our leg around in a quick sweep and hoping to knock Vivian off her feet is going to be the best one, because it looks like that's based off dexterity, which is our highest stat. If we go in to grip with a grip attack, that would be strength. And the roof, I'm not sure if that's wits or intelligence. Our intelligence isn't enough to compare against an elder, I don't think. Our intelligence is, our wits is, but I think the dex is the higher stat. So we're going to go with this. We duck low and bring my leg around in a quick sweep, hoping to knock Vivian off her feet. Vivian tries to pull away from you the moment Corliss gives her instructions, but you're able to move just quickly enough to surprise her with a quick sweep of your leg, sending her tumbling to the floor. She rebounds almost immediately with an inhumanly fluid grace, but you've kept her in place long enough for Corliss to aim and pull the trigger. A large caliber bullet tears a chunk out of Vivian's face, and she falls back, snarling. The wound is singed around the edges, and you can't help staring as smoke rises in thin wisps from the edges of her disintegrated jaw. The massive gun in Corliss' hand must be modified to shoot incendiary ammunition. There's few things more deadly to vampires than that other than the direct light of the sun. Vivian reaches a trembling hand up to her cheek and probes the wound as she tries to keep her balance. Corliss smirks as she advances and fires again, tearing a burning hole through Vivian's shoulder and propelling her to the floor, her left arm hanging uselessly by her side. "This won't stand, Eden," Vivian says. "The others will know what you've done when you're finally gone." Corliss laughs.
"When I'm gone? My dear sweet Vivian, what makes you think I'll be leaving so soon?"
She whirls in place and fires into the open air. A frantic scream echoes out through the room as Ophelia suddenly appears, a deep hole burnt through her chest. She collapses face first to the cold floor below and moves no more. Vivian's composed calm finally fractured. There's panic in her eyes now. She tries to claw her way back up to her feet, but her body isn't mending properly from its searing wounds.
"How did you... You really should have told your pet that she makes too much noise when she moves. Using the shadows can make one overconfident. The slightest sound and the illusion fades if one knows to be watching. And I know, Vivian. I know so much more than you think."
She offers you the weapon. You can still see waves of heat drifting through the air above its muzzle.
"Go on," she says. "Finish her so we can get out of here."
Aw, man. I'm not going to tell her no, especially when she has like a freaking gun. I wish we had the option just to shoot her in the head. Swerve both of them. But it doesn't look like the game's going to give me that option. I'd rather not be the one to pull the trigger, but it's what Corliss expects of me. I've made my bed, now I have to lie on it.
Quick and clean, Corliss says. There's no room for error.
You point the gun at Vivian's head. It feels monstrously heavy in your hand. Her struggles have ceased. She's realized the reality of her situation, and she has no desire to feed your ego by wiggling like a fish on a hook, desperate for freedom.
Do it then, Silas.
Vivian growls. She lurches forward with surprising suddenness. Do it! Startled by the unexpected lunge, you instinctively pull the trigger. The massive hand cannon nearly causes you to lose balance as the incendiary round tears through Vivian's forehead, shattering her skull as it explodes backward into blackened chips of off-white shrapnel. Her body slumps back and begins to dissolve into dust as you watch. You'd expect to feel satisfaction, and while there's certainly an emotion competing for prominence, you're also filled with nothing. I'm empty inside. I feel no joy, no regret, no pain. Was I supposed to feel anything other than hollow? I just don't know. I figured that would be more accurate for Silas because he has been bounced around like a ping pong ball on so many different tables. Like, there's only so much. He's like, he doesn't know. Like, I think the only thing he's loyal to is his pet rat and his luxurious bed. And that's, his butler, and that's pretty much it. Corliss shoves a large chunk of rubble away from the south wall.
A little help here, Silas.
You join her in clearing the way, and before long you've uncovered a beat-up but surprisingly functional door.
It pays to be familiar with the blueprints of a building when your enemies try to turn it into a death trap,
she says. Something catches her attention over your shoulder.
Ah, Luca.
Your sister looks like she's been through hell. Her top has been largely shredded. Yeah, I was going to say Geralt. And I was just like, that's not accurate. I know it was Gerald. Her top has been largely shredded by gunfire, and she's thrown one of the gunman's jackets over herself in an attempt at modesty. The telltale signs of recent mending pockmark what skin you can see, and she looks absolutely exhausted.
I killed every one of them.
She groans and winces with pain before shifting in place with a sharp crack of bone. It looks like she just reset her leg into its hip socket.
There. Now I don't have to waddle around like a damn penguin. You're a good girl, Luca,
Corliss coos.
And you'll be rewarded for your loyalty. What of the others? The council? Most of them made it out of the east stairwell once they broke through. That creep Bassaras almost got himself lit up, but I stepped in. He just about killed me to save a Lasombra, but I did for you, sire. And Raj is gone, but I know you didn't like him much anyway.
She cracks her back, and you can hear bones shifting into place.
He said that we should head for our havens for now. We can't risk all getting caught in the same place when the sun rises. It would be too tempting a target. We'll be reconvening tomorrow night. He's going to have his retainers find an appropriate venue and secure it during the day. No extended families, no dignitaries. Primogen and locals from Ottawa only.
Excellent, Corliss says.
I'm beginning to see why Arundel kept the man around. He's good in a pinch, and that's just what we need right now.
She opens the door and motions you and Luca through behind her.
We should be moving,
she says as she makes a beeline for the stairs.
We don't want to risk getting caught in a larger explosion. I doubt they have the capacity for it, but we should assume the entire building's set to blow and react accordingly. What? I need to ask something quick,
Luca says.
What happened to Vivian? We'll speak while we move, child.
Corliss pulls open another door, revealing a stairwell which she wastes no time descending.
Vivian is the one who called this hell down upon us and ruined my ceremony. For nights now, she's spreading conspiracy and lies, and now she's finally shown her true face and attacked each and every one of us, so she was punished accordingly. With the help of Silas, I should add. There's been so much about her that hasn't made sense lately, Luca says. The memory loss, the crucifixion. Do you think she might have been manipulated into doing what she did? Yeah, it's impossible to know now, child. And you'd be better served by keeping those questions to yourself from now on. Vivian will be left in the past, exactly where she deserves to be. A dusty relic soon forgotten. Such is the way of our world, child.
She stops suddenly and puts her hand to her hip, fingers questing until they return from her pocket with a small, buzzing cell phone.
Keep going, Luca, she says. Silas, stay with me.
Luca hesitates.
Are you sure? Now, child, go.
Luca skitters away. Last thing she wants at this point is to disobey a direct order.
Yes,
Corliss says into the flip phone burner.
It's taken care of.
She nods to herself as you nervously look up and down the stairwell. Far below, you can still hear Luca's footsteps getting further away.
Good,
Corliss says after a lengthy quiet.
Keep me updated by text.
She closes the phone and slips it back into a discreet pocket at the waist of her dress before looking over to you.
Come, child. We should catch up to your sister.
You descended 2 flights of stairs in relative quiet when you realize that this may be the last opportunity to speak candidly with Corliss for quite some time. Having so recently assisted her in dispatching her enemy, there may be no better time to discuss a sensitive topic. Oh, we plan to blackmail her?
Ooh.
Okay. So this is probably one of the most important decisions we make, guys. We need to ask her. Do we either just ask her flat out and offer silence in exchange for the truth, or do we go for blackmailing? You know what? Actually, there's no reason to Actually, we shouldn't blackmail because the Archon already knows. We told her everything, didn't we? So the Archon actually may take her own action against Corliss. So let's just see if we can get information. I have to ask about my past before it's too late. Why did Corliss lie to me all this time? Why make me believe that she's my sire? And offer my future silence on this topic in exchange for the truth, provided that actually happens, but we're going to assume that it does. To her credit, Corliss remains quiet as you recall the unearthed memories in their entirety. She doesn't interrupt or try to silence you until the very end when Arundel did something to your mind, the point at which the recollection ended.
You believe that these memories are genuine?
She asks. Her expression is serious, none of the usual condensation.
The very vision itself ends with the prince announcing his imminent corruption of your mind. Surely you must suspect this alternative history is a fabrication.
So why would Arundel hide fake memories in my head? And even if he did,
Why would he include an admission of his own guilt inside them if they were manufactured?
Corliss sniffs.
That's a very good question, child. Much of the memory has been changed, but there were some events that did actually happen.
Grit your teeth.
And how can I trust you that parts of the memories are false? How do I know you simply won't pick and choose what suits you?
Because your subconscious did everything it could to remind you that Arundel had been within you, steering the pot, Corliss says.
Why do you think the last moments of your vision had him leaning over you, announcing his intention to brainwash you?
It's hard to argue with her. And if Arundel never resurfaces, you'll never know his side of the story.
So what actually happened then? It is true that you are not my child by blood.
The admission hits you like a blow to the guts, even though you expected that it was true. How many decades have you spent believing her lies?
Now, I understand if that upsets you,
Corliss goes on.
but I did right by you. Grace Ep.10 was sick, overtaken by her beast. You were only the latest child of hers that she intended to sacrifice to her new masters, far from the first, and you wouldn't have been the last.
I stay quiet. Interrupting her while she's finally talking about my past might stop her revelations in her tracks. Corliss smiles in approval of your continued silence. She stops moving for a moment while she thinks.
Grace was an information broker of some renown in North American circles, and there were few elders she didn't have leverage over. When Arundel and I discovered that she had defected to the blood cults of the Sabbat, we knew there was only a limited amount of time before the filthy Cainites knew everything about us. It would have led to destruction on the scale of the Second Inquisition. Perhaps even worse. She had to be stopped, but no one dared to challenge her for fear that she would leak their own private misdeeds to the greater kindred community. But you weren't afraid of the same thing?
You ask dubiously. Social disgrace and exile can be almost as bad, if not worse, than destruction to a politically minded Camarilla.
I was terrified, child, as any sane kindred would be. But Arundel, the man was a force to be reckoned with then, strong and unstoppable when he set his mind to something. Back before he was weakened by anarch mind games and that filthy degenerate Robert Ward. Arundel was the one who landed the final blow on Grace, not me.
She looks like she's struggling to admit something.
I was too weak.
You blink with surprise. You can count the number of times Corliss had admitted her own weakness on one hand. Would she really be telling the truth?
And what happened after Grace was defeated? Did you step in and drain her like I saw in my memory? Of course not, child, Corliss says. It's a taboo to even speak of, let alone attempt. They call it diablerie, stealing the soul and power of the victim. If what I've seen through my research is true, even if I were to drain Grace, it would have been entirely possible for her spirit to take control of my own. She was far too powerful for me to consume, even if I would dare try such a thing.
She stays quiet for a moment, thinking deeply.
What concerns me the most is the timing of all of this. These false memories of yours were triggered at just the right moment, as if it was all planned. Why now, when Arundel's gone missing? How many layers of manipulation has he written to that malleable brain of yours? We'll need to investigate this in the future.
I am not bringing Jordan into this.
I think I'd like to keep my brain right where it is, thanks. You misunderstand, Corliss says. I have no intention of harming you. Simply studying. I would have thought you'd find it relieving to know that I intend to help you discover your own truths and piece together your past. Not to mention removing whatever programming the prince stuffed into your subconscious without your consent.
She peers down the stairs after Luca. How far down has she gotten? Would she have heard anything?
Don't worry about Luca, Corliss says. She's a good girl and always plays her part. She'll be greatly rewarded. As for you, I trust you've come to an understanding.
You flash her a thin-lipped smile. Sometimes that's all that's necessary. You emerge into a lobby filled with mortal police and emergency crews. Ambulance lights flash through the floor-to-ceiling windows, bathing the angular reflective surfaces of the lobby in a disorienting shimmer of reds and blues. Corliss's face twists into a furious frown.
When I get my hands on Key, she mutters, you must have better control of the police department than this. There should have been a blanket no-response order for calls from this building during the council meeting.
She hands you her phone.
Call Gerard. Have him bring you back home for the night and tell him to keep a close eye on security. I'll have my people reach out to him during the day to arrange a meeting tomorrow night. We all need a moment to gather our wits before returning to the matter at hand.
The matter at hand?
My Ascension, child, she says. Ottawa needs a leader now more than ever.
As you pass through the lobby doors, you look up along the hotel's glassy walls. Their simplistic placidity is interrupted in several places by ragged holes of shattered glass and blackened concrete. Corliss is right. Clearly the status quo isn't working. There's no order, no respect. The council is fractured and scattered like frightened children. Corliss wants to pull these pieces together again. She'll have her work cut out for her. Oh, okay. I don't know how long the epilogue is. Should we just go ahead and do the epilogue, guys?
Change is inevitable. It comes for us all. But we must guide it by the hand like a lover, or we'll destroy everything we have wrought. Every one of our stories has a beginning and an end. But we kindred are unique in that we have the enviable opportunity to start anew. Death and rebirth. What path will he tread in his next life, I wonder? From the Journals of Arundel, Prince of Ottawa. 2 nights later.
The chaos that plagued our domain will never again be repeated,
Corliss proclaims to a small gathering of elders and notable information brokers.
The perpetrators have met final death, as will any others who assume that Ottawa is weak during this time of transition. We have been tested in the fires of our enemies and have emerged triumphant, stronger than...
Peeling white paint blights the ceiling of the temporary council chamber. Despite the importance of the events going on around you, your eyes keep wandering back to it. One chip is heavy and curled around its edges, as if it's been waiting years to take the final plunge before falling to white powder, preferably in the scalp of someone important. The ancient vampires gathered around you also cling tightly to their moorings, bracing against the inevitability of change. Eventually, one by one, they'll chip away at each other, a parliament of knives that knows only entropy. All eventually fall. All things end. But while you were here, while you could still make a difference, did you not do everything within your power to be remembered? Bleck peeks out from your pocket and watches the meeting nervously.
Why bring me? He asks. Scary people in an old room that smells worse than our sewer. Let us hunt.
You're grateful that Bleck only speaks in your mind and not out loud. Things get awkward very quickly.
I keep telling you, Bleck, you think. I buy the cheese from a merchant. It doesn't come from a hunt.
A dismissive emotion flows through the bond.
Still a hunt.
Hush now,
you think.
I hush and you bring me to curd merchant, seller of cheese?
It's a deal.
Bleck burrows back into your pocket and curls up comfortably, waiting for his treat. You're startled when you notice that Corliss has cut short her speech and is staring right at you disapprovingly. She's been leading up to something, but you haven't been paying close enough attention. Wish you were out hunting. Your hunger is like an addiction that never stops reminding you of its insatiable desire, a constant clawing at the back of your mind.
I'd like to give the floor to Archon Durand.
That was unexpected. Adeline walks briskly to the front of the meeting room. All business as usual, no wasted movement, economy in motion. "Good evening, fellow kindred," she says. "Not all of us have met. I am Archon Adeline Durand." She speaks with a cadence closer to that of a military officer than an official addressing their elite patrons. Is that on purpose, or is she simply unaccustomed to formal settings? She continues after a brief pause to make sure she has everyone's attention. "I am aware that there are many rumors regarding the nature of my investigation. This is good. It means that the appropriate individuals have held their tongues as I required. When I arrived, I found a capital city very much out of order. Our Camarilla domains have become fractured of late, our ability to communicate hampered by the emergence of the Second Inquisition. My superiors might be content allowing some domains to fall to ruin, but this is Ottawa, home of the Canadian government. Politicians and agencies directing the forces of the Inquisition live and work here, and it is your duty to keep them under control. Allowing anarchs to rage through your streets unchecked was simply unacceptable." Corliss clears her throat.
I assure you, Adeline, the anarchs will no longer be a concern.
"Indeed," the Archon replies, "but there is one remaining item that does concern me. When was the last time you spoke with Grace Ep.10? Corliss stands rock still, shock on her face. You thought that Adeline attempted to keep your revelation about Grace's diablerie quiet from the court. It seems you thought wrong.
It's been decades at least, Corliss stammers. Nobody's seen her in decades.
But that's not true, is it? The Archon shakes her head. Not true at all. As a matter of fact, you talk to her every day, don't you? Or perhaps it's Corliss that you confer with from time to time. Isn't that right, Grace? Adeline's face breaks open in a wide smile. It's a dangerous game, the theft of power. What some might even call a spirit. It can imprint on you, change you, become you. She raises an eyebrow. I see you, Grace.
I should have destroyed you back in Toronto.
Corliss growls. You can almost swear that another voice is coming out of her mouth.
That bitch Eden got in my way. Looks like I got the last laugh.
She pulls a gun from a discreet holster hidden behind her skirt and aims it at Adeline as several chairs scrape back and council members prepare to defend themselves. Ooh. I yell to get Corliss's attention, giving Adeline the opportunity to avoid the shot and subdue her. Yes. Corliss, if she even is Corliss anymore, is entirely focused on Adeline. You yell out, hoping to distract her just long enough so the Archon can counterattack. You don't have much time to think, so you say the first thing that comes to your mind.
Corliss!
You shout as loudly as you can.
Watch out behind you!
She steps back, glancing for the phantom threat. It's not much, but it's enough to frazzle her nerves and make her shot go wide. Adeline steps back and calls out to Eden with a sharp expectation of obedience. You're caught off guard when Corliss actually stops moving and watches intently, as if she's been frozen in place. You're astonished at just how fast Adeline was able to get her composure back under control.
Kneel,
the Archon demands. You can see the struggle on Corliss's face. Or is that Grace's face? Will you ever know for sure? Her entire body is quivering. Adeline steps up to her slowly, stopping when she's only a few feet away.
Kneel,
she repeats.
A
shiver runs down Corliss's body and she drops to her knees like her strings have been cut. A limp puppet with no strength of its own anymore. The Archon has taken full control. That's good, Adeline says as she stoops to pick up Corliss's weapon. Very good. We'll have much to talk about in the coming nights. As of tonight, I will be taking over as acting Prince of Ottawa, Adeline declares. Eden Corliss committed the high crime of diablerie, consuming the essence of a well-respected kindred many of us knew and admired. The act twisted her mind and drove her to consort with the rabble, leading the city to ruin. You can tell that not all of the council is buying it, but so far none of them have raised an objection. You won't either, unless you want your body to end up chewed to pieces by a hail of bullets like Corliss's. Whew. I will begin hearing petitions tomorrow night, Adeline continues. Have no fear. I have no intention of remaining among you for longer than necessary. In time, a new prince will be installed, and business will get back to normal. What's normal? Alicia shouts from the back, standing up from her chair. We don't have people like you installing princes. There's nothing normal about... The Archon takes 3 quick shots with Corliss's handgun, each lodging themselves in Alicia's forehead. She falls back into her chair, barely clinging to consciousness. Please stay seated, Adeline says with a smirk. I'll keep Miss Gray as my guest and ensure that she's fed and recovers quickly. Her eyes scan the council. Any further objections? The room is silent. Excellent. Meeting adjourned. And there it is, guys. That is the end of VTM Parliament of Knives. And it leaves Silas's fate kind of out in the open. However, I'd like to think that it is a positive, just due to the fact that we cooperated with the new prince. Who knows, maybe after Picard goes out, we could be the Nosferatu Primogen. There's no telling. But I really like that. I was wondering if we were going to see any kind of like effect from telling the Archon about Corliss. Prince Silas. That's a possibility. I mean, stranger things have happened in the world of darkness. But I really enjoyed that. That was probably my favorite. I really liked Night Road. Out for Blood I did enjoy as well, but I think this one is awesome, especially with all the different threads that it can take. And it's just insane to me how good that is. So let's go ahead and just take care of this, do a little bit of bookkeeping. On a scale from 1 to 10, how likely are you to recommend this game to a friend? I am recommending this to all my friends in chat and beyond. So we will give that a strong 10. Oop. All right, I am already on that list, so I will go ahead for choice of games. Thanks for playing. Cool. So I do want to thank you guys very much for watching this. I when I first started doing these interactive novels for VTM, I was curious how they were going to go, but they seem to be very well received. And if you guys keep watching them, I will keep on doing them. So thank you all for watching Silas as he tried his best to survive the chaos of Ottawa. And I hope that your characters fare just as well, if not better. And you can do that because down in the description below, I have a link to VTM Parliament of Knives on Steam. I highly recommend you getting that. And going on your own adventure and seeing what threads you guys go on to. Pick a different clan. Just see what happens. But yeah, if you guys haven't followed the Twitch channel, please do so. I try and stream on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturday or Sundays. Wait, Tuesdays, Thursdays, Saturdays. Yes, that's more accurate. With random times in between. And if you are watching the replay of this on YouTube, I have a link to the Twitch channel in the description below, as well as the Steam link to Parliament of Knives. Please buy the game. Choice of Games did a great job, and Jeffrey Dean, just good stuff, boss. Very good stuff. And I also have a link to my Extra Life page where I'm raising money for my local children's hospital via the awesome Extra Life charity. So please check out those links if you feel so inclined. Like, share, subscribe. You guys know the drill there. And we will see you in the next series. Later days, everyone.